Hi, my name is Dr. Anna Jack-Waugh, and I'm usually to be found in the Alzheimer's Scotland Centre for Policy and Practice within the School of Health and Life Sciences. And I'm a senior lecturer there, and I'm also based in the Dumfries campus. But today, I'm going to talk about my experience of dyslexia. So dyslexia is described by Dyslexia Scotland as a continuum of difficulties in learning to read, write, or spell, which happens although somebody may have had an excellent education and all the potential privileges that somebody may have had in their lives. So I was diagnosed with dyslexia in my early 40s, but it had been part of my experience for as long as I was part of schooling. And the reason that I had such a late life diagnosis was because I had hit a wall whilst doing my professional doctorate study. And the wall that I hit was third year, where you have to really lift your academic writing. And one of the things that talking to colleagues about dyslexia and talking to friends who also have dyslexia is that we have a fairly unknown form of dyslexia, which combines the problems with reading, writing and spelling, but also combines strengths of high executive function, self-control and strong focus. And there's some very early work being done into something called stealth dyslexia. And that's important. I'll talk about that with students in a little while. Now, dyslexia impacts on my work very little now because I've been fortunate enough to be supported to have a diagnosis of dyslexia supported by an educational psychology assessment, and then I've got a range of technological supports that support my reading, writing and spelling. Where I still struggle is fatigue, because many people with dyslexia will check, double check and do a lot of planning and take a little bit more time over things. So fatigue is my biggest struggle. Now what helps and hinders is support and teamwork from my colleagues, and I'm really lucky to work with the centre because all of my colleagues are aware of my diagnosis and do offer both support, honesty and a little bit of humour within that team. The other things that really help are is the range of my technology and my cat. I don't know if you can see my cat on my knee. So I have, as part of my assessments and my the interventions that I had as a consequence of my assessments, I have Global Autocorrect, Grammarly, Read and Write Gold, and I use text-to-speech constantly. And what I also do as much as I can, which is not always possible, is take rest periodically. Now what really hinders is spelling pedants. Now it's not so much of an issue now because the technology addresses the spelling and reading difficulties that I had, but in the past I've had spelling pedants who have provoked shame, significant shame, and one of the most damaging things that a colleague did to me was return one of my emails to my line manager with all the spelling mistakes underlined and copied me in. Excuse me. And obviously I still remember that, and I know the person that did it. And the shame that that provoked in me was incredible and stays with me, although it was done about 8 years ago. The other thing that causes shame, but actually is a real sign that somebody might need help, is people's faces where they see a gap between performance. So I perform very well verbally, and it's one of the reasons that I continue to enjoy teaching, because it is one of my strengths. But up until I got my technology in my early 40s, there was a gap between my verbal performance and what was written on the page. And this gap was so significant that I would have colleagues or line managers and managers look at what I'd written, look at me, and have an expression of shock. And that's an expression in a face that I've seen since I was a child. And for some people, they were able to see that that gap is an indication that there is something wrong. But for others, it was accompanied by a significant amount of judgment. And it's that judgment of incompetence and that judgment that you can't do what everybody else thinks you should be able to do that is so shame-provoking that actually it restricts people reaching their potential, it restricts people taking risks in what they do, and reminds people that every time they go back to a piece of work or an activity where that shame was provoked, that pain is relived. So what I'd appeal for people to do is, if they see a gap in performance, if they see somebody's performing really well in one area but really badly in another area, there might be lots of reasons for that. But dyslexia might also be the reason for that. And that maybe that's an indication that somebody could be supported to access the disability services at UWS. And that's an indication that somebody needs more help and support. So thank you very much for your time today, and feel free to come and talk to me about dyslexia if you see me around the university. I work with Dyslexia Scotland on a local level down in Dumfries, and I'm always willing to talk to people and listen to people about their experiences of dyslexia.